Hi there, I'm Gareth Jones and I'd like to welcome you to the latest edition of Modern Fly Fishing Tactics. In this edition we're going to open up the very latest in tackle, techniques and flies for the coming season. This year has seen us visit a variety of different fisheries and use a wide variety of techniques which will only add to the appeal. On the large Stillwater, Grafham was our choice for this episode, and here we targeted the infamous killer shrimp feeders. These fish run close to the shore to hunt out their food and demand good fishing techniques to fool them. Again, being a Grafham expert, Iain was on hand to show me the flies techniques that are essential to making the best of this very unique situation. Grafham certainly responded and we experienced some cracking sport with some super fit silver rainbows that this water always seems capable of producing. The time of day can have a massive impact on your success. Early morning was essential for the Grafham shrimp feeders, with the lower light levels and less angler pressure that gave the fish confidence to come into the shoreline for the rich feeding that was on hand.
Well, Grafham water this morning looks absolutely perfect, and normally it's the early bird catches the worm. This morning, the early bird has been catching some beautiful Grafham rainbows like this. Now the shrimp feed tight into the dam right along the crevices, so you've been seen as we've been sat down chucking 3 or 4 yards of fly line at the most and almost dibbling your shrimp patterns right in the margins, and you can often see the fish cruising, little swirls taking the shrimp as it sits in the film, and these cracking rainbows are just gorging on them down the sides. The idea is to keep low, keep a very low profile and flick down the wind tight into the margins. Avoid standing, avoid hitting the horizon, you're casting over them. Nice and low, nice and tight. Let's see if we can get any more.
Fin perfect Grafham rainbow. This time it's taken the slightly smaller shrimp. I tend to fish different size shrimps, and certainly last year the bigger fish were taking the size 14, and you would think that the bigger fish would want the mouthful, but not this little beauty. He's took a size 12, and I've got a 10 on the top, a 12 on the middle, supported by a fab holding the flies nearer the surface on the point. But certainly last season, the 14s, the smaller fly, took the better fish. They tend to see a lot of the bigger shrimp, and then it's like going finer and smaller to get the better quality fish. So this is just a mint condition, 2.5 pound, lovely pink stripe, Grafham rainbow again, tight in the margins. A bit of sun's come out and the fish have just dropped a little bit, so it was a little bit deeper, but still close to the bank, and I've still got this nice low profile to allow me to get the fish close in. Let's see if we can go and get another. We started this morning fishing the first couple of yards off the bank, and the fish were certainly tighter in. Now the sun has come over the back of the dam, and without doubt the fish have pushed out. Still only 10-15 yards out, and they've certainly dropped a little bit. This morning I was fishing more suspender style shrimps to keep tight in the margins. Now I've gone on to the shrimp type nymph larvae, fishing 10 yards out, 3 or 4 foot down, and the fish are continuing to come. I suspected they were on shrimp. We'll just see what this one's been feeding on. I'll be very surprised if we don't find any shrimp inside him. Yeah. Here you can see the evidence here. I've been catching on 10s and 12s. These are a good, oh, that's a big one there. That's a good size 8. And a couple of maybe 10s and 12s in there, so match the hatch perfectly. Beautiful. Very olivey colour, these ones, which are slightly lighter than normal. But you certainly gorge on. That's 3 very, very fresh shrimps, I suspect, eaten first thing this morning. We've looked inside the stomach contents and we've seen the shrimps and we've looked at the sizes. Now I said there was some size 8 quite big shrimp in there, which did surprise me, so I've got size 8 shrimps here. What I could do is change to a size 8 and maybe give them the option of a smaller one on the droppers, the 10s and the 12s. Often they're your clues, you need to look in the contents. But having been crouched so low to keep away from these fish, I've noticed a lot of snails tight washed up on the shoreline here. And some of these rises have definitely been the snail rises, tiny little swells, not quite breaking the surface, indicating the snails. And if you look closely along here, there's all sorts of olive snails being washed up, quite small. So I've got a little sugar cube hairs here. So what I could do is mix it, have a couple of shrimp patterns and a snail pattern on the point there. So I'm covering various options, giving them a choice.
The Airflo Delta fly reel comes with an incredibly lightweight die-cast aluminium frame. Great looks, and all this at an unbelievable entry-level price. As you can see, the Delta reel has been heavily ported on the cage and the spool. Now this not only reduces weight, but also helps the stunning good looks. The Delta reels are available in 3 sizes. All have a large arbor spool and a V-shaped design which will help with the improved backing capacity. Each reel is easy to convert from left to right hand wind and has a super powerful drag system, making it one of the best value reels on the market today.
We're here today at Grafham Water, renowned for their beautiful, fully finned, hard-fighting rainbows. The shrimp have appeared in the last 4 or 5 years, known as the Grafham killer shrimp, and they literally are in and around the stones under your feet. And that has drawn all the trout, famous for Daphnia feeding out in the middle on Grafham, into the margins, literally under your rod tip. Anglers now appear all along the dam wall, along the natural banks like we are today, trying to catch these fish as they gorge on these big, often about 1 inch long, killer shrimp. Today we've seen rising fish. We're going to try a few methods. The shrimp has to come into it. Midas dry flies, maybe some daddy long legs, and we often use, like on any water, an attractor fly. That could be something like a blob or a fab or a booby, something bright but put more imitative pattern 3 or 4 foot just above it to draw the fish in, and they often take that, maybe a shrimp today or a small nymph or a dialback or something. So similar tactics, whether on a big reservoir like Grafham, a small water, a more natural fly with something a little bit scary that will draw the fish in to come and have a look. Fishing from the bank is not just always about a random stop and start fishing. Carefully chosen this spot. Lying just over here is a lovely bank of weed. I know there's going to be crixa, I know there's going to be shrimp, and if the food's there, the fish won't be far away. Telltale sign was actually spotting 1 or 2 fish moving as we walked along the bank. So I've picked my right spot, and then it's about the presentation of the flies. I'm fishing over weeds, so I've put 2 buoyant flies on, I've put a little fab on the point, ginked up Midas on the top dropper with 2 shrimps in the middle. They're going to be feeding on shrimps, but they'll take the dry as a shrimp, and they'll take the fab just because they're inquisitive by it. So balance the setup, found my spot, now I've got to go and catch them. Rising fish, and I pulled my line to get across it, and it's nailed the fiery brown Midas straight off the top on the top dropper. Again, we've picked our spot here based on there's a bank of weed lying along there, and the fish are rising just above the weed. So I've got a couple of buoyant flies, they're dry, with a fab on the point and a couple of shrimps in the middle. It's actually taken the shrimp, not the Midas. I've got them quite close together so it sees the dry and then takes the nymph sitting below it. And another cracking Grafham rainbow. It's like bone fishing, it's in the shallow water, they feel the bottom and they do not like it, and they tend to do some pretty spectacular runs and flips. Let's bring him to hand and we can let this one go. It's another beautiful 2.5 pound Grafham rainbow. Taking the little shrimp on the dropper. And he's got some lovely rays in his fins and his tail. Again, 2 or 3 foot of water. Fight like demons, but let this one go for the next time. Off you go, pal. There he goes to fight another day. As you can see, I'm using a floating line. Now what's important, because I'm fishing very, very static and the slowest of micro retrieves, just to keep the flies up, is your floating line must lay dead straight. If you've got all these kinks and snakes in it, a fish will pick up the fly, it'll often move with the fly, feel it and spit it out. So what's important is to keep direct contact and make sure your line is dead straight on the water. If you look at the rod tip, you'll see that the rod tip is literally 2 or 3 inches above the surface. Again, that's keeping me in direct contact with those flies. You can fish a loop if the takes are really aggressive. You've got a nice high loop like that, and the takes are smash takes, that will help you connect better with them. If the takes are really supple, and you've got your line up nice and high like that, you're going to miss them. So as a general rule, 3 or 4 inches above the surface keeps you in direct contact. As a fish picks it up, it will draw away. So we've talked about having the importance of a straight line. Today I'm using the new Airflo forge line. Its casting is absolutely amazing. And what's important, as I've just said, is it lies dead straight on the surface. So anything picks those flies up, I'm in direct, instant contact with that fish. And it's casting well, it's going 35 plus yards very, very easily. I've got a good backwind, which is going to help me, but it's very, very smooth in the hand to feel, and it just glide out through those rings with ease. I've got 3 flies on at the moment. I've got the attractor, and I've got 2 little shrimps on the droppers, and dropper length is quite important too. As a guide, I would say a minimum 6 inches. Now, we all know 6 inches, it can kind of vary, depending who you're talking to. But a general 6-inch rule, as a minimum, I like to fish them 8 to 12. As a 6-inch minimum, you're not going to be far off. Get to 2 or 3 inches, your droppers are far too close to your running line. So keep your droppers 6 inches. Distance apart, that can vary. It's quite clear water today, so I generally say keep the nymphs and keep the flies 5 to 6 foot apart. But what I've done today, a lot of fish are coming for the attractor on the point as it floats. I've moved that shrimp within 3 foot. They'll see the attractor, turn and then take the shrimp instead if they don't fancy the bright gaudy offering on the point. Keep your flies well spaced apart. As a rule, I don't like 2 bright flies close together within 6 foot. I always fish two bright flies as a minimum 12 foot apart. Just tying on myself a new leader. And one thing I do as a rule is I always call that 6 foot, which is a full stretch from the end of my fly line to my first dropper. Here we've got a dropper there, again we talked about 10 inches. So I'll put a nymph on there. I'll then get approximately 4 foot to my next dropper. Again, that'll be another shrimp. And this is where you'll see the difference. I've only got about 2.5 foot to 3 foot from that shrimp to that buoyant fab. So fish will come to this fab and that shrimp will be in view. It will be in its window. If it doesn't want the horrible thing, it will take the more natural pattern. So 3 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot to the fly line. Okay, knots are important. It's what attaches your nylon to the fly. So if your knots aren't right, you get a fish, it will come off. So I'm using the new Airflo G5 11.2. It's quite an aggressive strain, but these fish are hard. They're fighting really, really strong. Got clear water, they can't see it anyway, so go as strong as you dare. So I'm on 11.2. Now, this confuses a lot of people. You read all sorts of things about must be 4 turns, must be 6 turns. I do, for 11.2, 3 turns. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Stick it through my loop. Look at the old moisture. Pull it tight, and I've got a really small little knot there, and that will help that fly fish a lot better. I said 3 turns, but if you go on 8 pound with 3 turns, the knot will slip. So always check your knots carefully. So as a rule, generally I go 4 turns for 8 pound, 5 for 6, and 3 for 10, 11, 12 or 13 pound, whatever I fish. That's a good guide. 3 turns and 8 pound will slip every time. The best thing you can do is when you get your nylon, test the number of turns it needs. It does vary per brand. What you might use for the G5 might not work for something else.
Throughout the course of the fishing season, you're going to encounter a wide variety of weather conditions. So it's really important that you get a versatile fly line that can handle a wide range of fly sizes and different fishing techniques. The design goal behind the forged lines was to take the most important features found in our top of the range floating lines and put them into a modestly priced all-round fly line. The easy casting 40-foot head lends itself to dry fly, nymph and lure fishing techniques. The lines have a stealthy olive head colour and a highly visible running line. The front of the line features a low profile loop for easy leader connection. For more information about the Forge and any other Airflo products, visit airflowfishing.com.
Oh, I got a nibbler. Got a nibbler. Oh, and again, it's still nibbling. It's going to lock up in a minute. As soon as that fish's head is up like that, you should be able to roll them towards you. Or splash them. That's probably my best fish of the day. And he's gone. That wind's just swung round to the east, making it a perfect left to right wind. There's no better natural wind direction for fishing your nymphs. Beep. Okay, I'll get your mate instead. As you can see, the weather has now turned against us, made the perfect day quite not so perfect because we're now getting wet. But the tips you've learnt today, the turnover of your flies, the distance, the drab shrimp patterns nearer a bright fly, keeping your rod tip in direct contact with your line, nice and high if you're getting aggressive takes. All these little tips, not just with Grafham, you can use those wherever you go fishing, whether it's on the boat or the bank, but technically from the bank, follow these techniques for more fish. Hope you've enjoyed it.
The original Airlight was always a favourite of ours at Airflo, but now with advances in technology and materials, we're very happy to launch the Airlight V2, which is now available in a 4-piece version. We've gone for high quality components throughout, as you can see from the stripping guides. Very low profile ceramics, really shoot well. For the intermediate and tip guides, we've gone for single leg snakes. Not only do these help reduce weight, but they also improve the rod's recovery rate. The Airlight V2 is a black anodized reel seat. It also has a self-aligning locking ring, and also you'll find that the rings themselves have been heavily ported, which will even further reduce the weight. The demands of the UK-based angler are a little different from those of our European and US counterparts, and finding rods designed to perform in our conditions, designed by anglers who know our waters and fishing styles, are an absolute bonus. With the pedigree of the original Airlight, we had numerous requests to reinstate these rods, only this time with a marked emphasis on a 4-piece construction to make them even easier to transport. Situated in the wonderful Shropshire countryside, Ellerdine is a fantastic complex of 4 separate lakes. Capably run by Ed and Jane Upton, these lakes are well stocked with fish up to and sometimes in excess of 20 pounds. I've never fished the water before, but today I'm going to be joined by my good friend Iain Barr, who I know fishes here quite regularly. I'm hoping that Ian's going to share some of the secrets and tactics that have made him such a success.
With these lakes that have got deepish water under your rod tips, really important and critical to hang your flies. Now what we mean by the hang is just to slowly bring your flies up, raise your rod to about 9 o'clock, and just start a very slow figure of 8, gently lifting your rod each time. Do this every cast, you can almost guarantee you'll double your catch rate. Certainly this time of year when the fish are lying slightly deeper. Notice total control with the left hand, inch the flies up and just literally stop, and as the name suggests, you hang the fly suspended and you're watching your leader just move or tighten up. It's such a deadly water in all these small waters. It's a known boat method, but a lot of people don't apply it to these small lakes, and often it does work.
If you're looking for a new set of waterproof clothing for the start of the season, for less than the cost of one of our competitors' jackets, then look no further than our Defender range. The two-tone unobtrusive colour blends well with the background, and the nylon zips will give you years of trouble-free use. Hand warmer pockets behind the large cargo pockets will keep your hands toasty on those cold spring days. A fleece-lined collar will keep the neck region warm without chafing, and a fully adjustable hood can be rolled out of the way on more clement days. With pre-shaped arms for comfort when casting and Velcro cuffs for easy adjustment. Not only will you get a waterproof jacket and trousers, we'll also throw in a free fleece to keep you warm on those raw spring days. The Defender clothing is also available in this wade-in jacket option, which is perfect for any time the waders are worn. After the huge success of our Outlander range, this season sees us introduce a couple of the products in a digital camouflage pattern. Both the mesh vest and the vest pack have a huge array of pockets on the front that allow you to carry every possible fly box or accessory. On the reverse of the pack, you'll find a double zipped backpack. One section where you can put your hydration pack and another section where you can put your fleece or your waterproof clothing. The covert vest backpack is fully adjustable, meaning that one size fits all. Also available in our covert range is our incredibly popular mesh vest. On the rear, you'll find a large mesh pocket, perfect for putting a fleece in if it gets a little cool. You've got your D-ring so you can put your net on, and like all our vests, it's fully adjustable so one size will fit all. The highly effective digital camo pattern will break up the angler's outline, giving the ultimate in stealth and concealment.
We've talked about the hang quite a bit today, and it's such a crucial method. So many anglers tend to chuck it out, pull it back, and as they lift off, you often get a swirl behind your fly. Had you hung your flies, I typically count 12 seconds. You will catch so many more fish, especially on a venue like this where fish do patrol the margins. And you cast it out and you literally just lift your flies up and hang it. And in your head, count 10, 12 seconds. Make that a part of every single cast, and I'll guarantee you're going to catch a lot more fish. Well, another fine Ellerdine rainbow yet again. Because we've got nice deep water just under the bank, that fish come on the hang. That's probably 9th or 10th fish to come on the hang like that. We're just holding the flies like you would in a boat, literally a rod length out, and just counting to 10 to 12 seconds in my head, and the rod tip just bends over, and it's another fine rainbow. And this one's on an Apps worm, this one. So you don't have to cast into the middle of these lakes, just bring your flies in, hold them under your rod. A lot of fish do patrol tight to the margins in here because you've got 6 foot, literally a rod length out. That's the fish safely unhooked. It's all barbless hooks here at Ellerdine, so we'll get him in the net, put him out a little bit from the edge, and safely release him for someone else to enjoy him.
Have you ever got to the end of the season and found a load of rusty flies in your fly box? Waterproof boxes have helped, but certain foams will actually hold water, and this water will actually get into the flies and degrade them over time, making them completely useless. Unlike normal foam, silicone doesn't absorb water, so it helps maintain your flies throughout the course of the season. Silicone holds your flies really securely, and unlike foam, it doesn't distort over time. With a waterproof seal and a clear lid to view your flies even when they're in the fly box, the Airflo gripper boxes will keep your flies in great shape for seasons to come. New for the season is the Airflo Mesh Bass Bag, and it's backed by popular demand. The Bass has really strong webbing handles, a good quality zip, and is more than capable of holding a heavyweight limit of fish. The whole principle of the mesh bag is evaporation. It's this evaporation that is going to keep your catch fresh. So don't leave the bass bag over the side with your fish hanging in the water all day. Just constantly dip it every hour or so and let the evaporation cool your fish and do its job for you.
Been quite a bit of rain. Water clarity is probably only about 2 foot, so it allows you to fish your flies a lot closer. Typically I like my flies 6 foot apart, but today I've got them 4 foot apart, and normally I'd go lure, a couple of nymphs, non-scaries, but today, because the water clarity is only about 2 foot, I've got my flies about 4 foot apart, and I've got a varying worm on the top or a jelly blob with a cormorant and a dancer on the point, which typically I wouldn't do, but because the water clarity is the way it is, the fish are never going to see all three at the same time, providing you fish them slowly. Don't go pulling lures fast in dirty water, because if the fish see it and you give it a 3 foot pull in 2 foot viz, the fly's disappeared out of line. Again, that lovely long slow hang, you'll see 3 what I call scary flies, which is unusual. But with this clarity of water, you're going to get away with it. But Ellerdine's got several lakes, and I fished the others this morning. They're crystal clear. So there I've been on a little small egg fly and 2 little natural buzzers down to 6 pound line. Yet here, I'm getting away with 11.2. No need to go fine in water clarity of this kind of nature. Give it 2 or 3 calm days and this water will clear, so again you may need to drop down to 6-8 pounds. So think about the water clarity on choosing your tippet. You'll get away with 5-6 pound, but there's so many big fish in this place you don't want to get smashed when you can easily be fishing 10, 12, 13 pound if you wish, because the water clarity permits you to do that. The clearer lakes, whether it's here at Ellerdine or any other, look at the water clarity and consider your tippet choice based on the clarity of the water. Clear water, generally fine nylon. Murky water, you can go much heavier. They can't see it, it's that simple. Talked about fishing the hang, and what's important is you've got a weighted fly on the point. This is a beaded fly I've got here, for example, and it just helps bite the flies in, keeps the flies nice and vertical for a lovely straight ascent to the surface. Tungsten bead holds it nice and deep, hangs perfectly. If you've got a non-weighted fly, they tend to lift too quickly, don't quite hang right, and they're dropping wrong. Whereas with the tungsten bead on the point, you've got more of a vertical angle coming up. Perfect way to fish the hang. We've talked a little bit about flies, but a white and yellow dancer, black and greens, various coloured blobs in tequilas, peaches, yellows. Apps worms, again, red, lime's a very good colour. A variation of colours. Keep rotating those colours, keep them changing. That keeps the fish coming. Yet again, another fish, 1 rod length out, brought the flies up, got to 3 or 4 seconds in my 12-second count, and bingo. Another one.
We at Airflo have been supplying waders to the fly fishing market for many years. But time and again we get asked for a super tough workhorse wader. Well, here it is, the new Airflo Super Tough. Super Tough waders are made from the most advanced, durable Plavitex material. Double welded and double stitched, the Super Tough waders feature a reinforced knee section for superior durability. The built-in wading boots feature a cleated sole and are studded for superior grip. The Airflo Super Tough waders are available in both chest and thigh options. They're available in sizes 7 through to 13. For more information, go to airflowfishing.com. Well, Iain, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of fun this year working on the film.
Did.
Got to see a few new waters.
And some new fish.
Yeah, we did. And I have to say, you really impressed me at Ellerdine.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
You know,
Gareth.
credit where it's due. And the type of water I fish, I really like the larger waters, and it was a real education to watch what you were capable of doing on the small still waters.
Yeah, it is a different game, because Ellerdine, of course, was voted UK's best small water in 2014, and it's understanding how the fish behave differently to a reservoir. You've got a lot more fish often packed in, so they can be a lot easier to catch, but not always the case. But Ellerdine, they do like to swim the perimeters, but what you also got to remember, it's a lot of catch and release, and they become wise very quick. So adapting tactics, not like you would in a reservoir, you would stick the same thing. You can't do that on a small water. No, it's probably where you went wrong, Gareth.
Yeah, possibly. Possibly fishing buzzards instead of something like this, Iain, you know?
Yeah, they don't know what buzzards are.
No, they certainly take a lot of liking to the rubber flies. I saw that.
Yeah, the old Apps worms are, on these small waters, they're so deadly.
Sure.
The Appleby father and sons, you know, they're famous for these things, and the movement, you've got the depth, you've got the colour, you've got everything that draws a fresh trout in.
I noticed also from the small still waters, Iain, that there were certain techniques that you were pulling from big reservoir fishing. You know, I can see you spent a lot of time fishing the hang, and that looked like it was unbelievably effective.
It's very similar techniques to the reservoir, but you just adapt them slightly. You talked about the hang. So typically on a boat, you'll bring your flies to the hang, you do it, I do it, everyone else does it, and you get those fish as they come up and and ahhing, it just suddenly hangs. You drop the rod back, and that dropping sensation, they can't help it. You do exactly the same.
All the marabou opens up and the flies, and is that
the rubber legs start giving some life, and people seem to forget all their boat techniques on the bank. They work exactly the same. So you talked about dropping it back. We use beaded flies to help drop the fly back down quickly. If you get a follow, drop your rod, let the fly go down. Same on the hang. You can lift it, you can hold it, and then you can just lower your rod, and as the fly drops, fish do the rest. The rod tip goes over, and you're in. So your same boat techniques, you can take them to a small water. They're very similar.
Sure. I also noticed you caught a lot of fish on that cormorant in the middle.
Yes, so we talked about these small waters. A lot of fish are caught and they're released to become very wise, but it's a very, you'll see it's a very sparsely dressed cormorant, nothing to it, and it's buzzery, it's non-scary, and it's black. And on the particular day we fished, there's a lot of rains, a lot of milky water in there, and that will stand out beautiful. And when they see it, it's not big and rubbery, it's, I'm going to have that, and they'll have it. But often these big rubbery things, the bright lures, the squirmies, draw them in.
Sure.
But on the hang, when they come up for that squirmy, they turn back down. That's what's behind it, and they nail it. So it's a good little technique.
I caught a lot of fish on the edges of the water. There seems to be that band there, doesn't it? There's that 30-foot band where, if you imagine you're lifting off your flies, you've got 10 feet of fly outside the tip ring, you've got a 10-foot rod, and you've got at least 10 to 15 feet of tippet on the end. There could be 35 feet of water between where you lift off and where the fish have got no pressure whatsoever. And certainly when I was fishing the buzzers, that sneaky little angle up the side of the bank, even short range, maybe only 3 or 4 yards cast was enough to get those fish that otherwise wouldn't get caught. You know?
A lot of these fish on the small waters, and it's not just Ellerdine, they're all the same. They patrol the margins, is what they're used to. And a lot of the anglers, they're stood on the edge of the bank. They've got their 30 foot in front of them, they're lifting out, and the fish are here, and you're lifting out over there. And like I said, a little sneaky one down the sides, a little sneaky one down that side, and stand back so your hang's coming under your feet, your hang's not out there. Just these little tiny things.
The other thing I did notice at Ellerdine was that those fish, even on the smaller still water, had stacked up at the bottom of the wind. It was only a slight breeze on the day that we fished, but they certainly seemed to get pushed into that one corner.
I don't know if you remember, when we arrived, it was about -4 degrees. So
I know all about that.
It was who dares wins. It was cold down that bottom end, but what warmer water there was and what food there was pushed into that corner. So, and it's very common, it's the same on the reservoirs, the small waters. If you go down the wind, typically April up to May time, that's where most fish will be, and Ellerdine was no exception. They were stacked up queuing for it. I didn't tell you that little bit.
No, you didn't.
Had to get an early lead.
Yeah, well, the other thing I noticed that was certainly beneficial to me on my day was that the tipper diameter again came into it. Always comes to the fore when you're on pressurized fish. I was down on the 6 pound breaking strain fluorocarbon, and my catch rate went up in the afternoon when I went out with that finer breaking strain.
And that's another thing to remember, that these are shy fish that have been caught, they've been released, they've seen it all before, and a thicker nylon, especially on the smaller nymphs, because you do a lot of buzzer fishing. I was on the proper flies, the scary things.
Sure.
And you'll get away with the thicker nylon.
Cool.
Because it's G5. I'm a massive fan. I mean, I was on 13.1. Let's not mess about. But I've got the toys to play with, because you're on the sparser stuff, and there is a time for 6 pound. I think it's 6.4. Is it 6.9? 6.9. Strong as an ox, but it's so thin. And what I like about it, it's very supple, and you get a really small knot. On smaller flies, that's important. So there is definitely a time for that. For me, it was more the big lures and the scary nylon. But you're in the calmer water on the nymphs, where presentation is key. So you're down to 6.9, which is more than strong enough.
Brilliant. Well, I know I stuck to the floater and buzzers all day, but tell me what lines you were using.
I was on the clear 40 plus line.
Sure.
Fished a lot of lines. The water was reasonably clear. and the fish can't see it. It's almost transparent. Sure. But what I like about it is the sink rate. The fish were quite deep, and I wanted to fish a good hang. There's no point chucking out a dive 7 or a dive 5 to crash down to the bottom very quickly, because we talked about the fish will fluctuate in the levels.
Sure.
If I'm going through too quickly, I might miss them.
Yeah.
If I get a take as I'm counting down 5-10 seconds, I know they're up a little bit.
Sure.
But the descent is perfect. It's 1.5 to 2 inches per second. It just drops through the layers. Not too slow, so it gets me down where I want to be, but it's not too quick. Whereas a dive 5 will get me to the bottom quicker, but it will miss those fish that are coming up.
The other thing I noticed you doing a lot, Ian, was fishing down those margins, fishing in amongst all those little reeds.
Yeah, there's a lot of gaps in Ellerdine, and I was trying to find the pegs which I could see hadn't been fished for a little while.
Sure.
And you often get the gap in the reeds, and people just think, I must cast outwards. No. But if you can, stand to the side of the peg and chuck down the edge of those reeds, whether it's Ellerdine or wherever you are. There's always fish in there that don't see a lot because people won't cast a fly in front of them. And they sit there because there's food, shrimps coming out of those reeds. But if you can get your angle right, step to the left of the peg or to the right of the peg and chuck down the sides,
sure,
and you'll pick extra fish up. You don't have to keep casting out the middle.
No. And I think also that change of angle. Fish get so used to flies coming in one direction all the time.
Yeah.
You may get 1 or 2 takes early doors, then they stop coming. Even changing your angle at distance helps.
Yep.
But I think it's the term is clever traveling, where you actually go around the lake and pick all the spots, pick one fish off and just wind everybody else up on the lake, which I'm sure you'd enjoy doing a lot.
No, not me, no.
But for the large Stillwater this year, you got me out on Grafham water, and I can see why you get me out of bed so early to go and fish it. It was absolutely incredible.
It's been the mecca the last few years.
Sure.
Early bird catches a worm, but in this case, the early fishermen catch the trout. That break in light for the first hour, get there before it just gets light. That first hour is phenomenal. The fish are so confident, they're almost up the banks after these shrimps, after these snails. For that first hour, you can have so many fish, and you arrive an hour later, and you think, oh, it's quiet this morning. You've missed the best bit. Yeah. Set that alarm early, get out early, and catch them fish.
I'd never seen so many fish so close. It honestly looked like it had just been stocked. Yeah. And these weren't stock fish. These were super silvered up, 2 to 3 pound fish, one after another, cruising up a foot out from the shore. It was incredible.
Amazing.
Well, Ian, Grafham, I was looking for a little bit of help as usual, and you certainly had a good setup with the flies there. Tell me a bit more about it.
Yep. There's no secret they were feeding on the shrimp, so I went well prepared with one of my Grafham swimming killer shrimps. Come up with this a few years ago, because if you've noticed the shrimp on Grafham, they'll sit and they'll just sit like that and they'll drop and they curl up. Okay. And when they start moving, they go straight and they go quite a pace. And you've got some real big shrimps that you can't represent on international size flies. This is a size 8 grub, which is in the gauge. I typically start with a size 8, a 10, a 12 or a 14. Maybe go down to the smaller sizes as the season progresses, your November, December times, but as the fish get wise, and you tend to get your bigger fish on the smaller shrimps as they get wised up to these flies, because they're so accessible to the bank angler. The fish are so close. Sure. They soon become wise. But typically, that morning we're out, big 8 on the point, feed the greedy ones, a 10 or 12 and a little 14 top dropper, and fish them down the side of the dam. Yeah. But with the big 8 at the top, I was getting a lot of catches on the concrete blocks, so I switched to the Midas. Okay. But I tied one with a little cube, saves me messing around with gink, and they were sitting right in the film, because those shrimps will come to the top, they just hang. So I just tied a couple of Midases.
We've seen a lot of fish push through on the surface, haven't we?
And that's when they're taking the shrimp near the top. So I put on a couple of Midases, kept the little shrimps in the middle, and either the Midas would shoot down and they'd be on the shrimps, or they'd come up and just nail those Midases right down the edge. But a little bit of foam helps suspend the 2 little shrimps, like a little washing line, in 2 foot water right up against the bank. The fishing was phenomenal.
I noticed one thing you did, which you didn't tell me till a little bit later in the day, and that was the speed of the retrieve.
Sure.
I was nymphing, and for me nymphing means It's quite slow, steady retrieve, just keeping in touch with it.
Yeah.
But you were giving these things a movement.
Yeah, I didn't tell you all the secrets straight away. I wanted a little advantage
Sure.
first, as you know, that's a competitor in me, Gareth.
Yeah, I know
But
that.
yeah, these shrimps, I sat and watched them a couple of years ago, and I spent a lot of time watching them, and I came up with this pattern. And like you, I thought they're shrimps, they don't move, they just kind of a bit of a wiggle and going back and hide in the mud. These things swim at incredible rates. You know, a good steady figure of 8.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I learned that.
Yeah,
I learned that.
that's the perfect retrieve for them. And then stop and let them drop, because these shrimps, they go along like this and they'll just suddenly stop and they'll drop a little bit. And they really move. So, you know, don't think nice static nymphing or really slow. You really give it some, crank it up.
I noticed as well the takes were very aggressive on it. I felt that the fish was almost trying to kill the shrimp
Sure.
in the take. So, you know, I was changing my rod angle just to stop me from getting broken off. The takes were just super aggressive.
Yeah, typically like, on a very subtle take with the nymphs, you've got your rod right down the fly line and you're absolutely smack on, Gareth. Standing on the bank, keep your rod a good 2 foot above the surface, because those takes on the shrimp,
It's
they're
arm
amazing.
wrenches.
It's brilliant. It's like May buzzer time, but 10 times as aggressive. And if you got your rod straight down the line like you normally would, bing.
Yeah. Now, we had a great morning on the dam, but after we wised up a few, to say the least, we ended up going onto the North Shore to look for a few more fish.
Sure, yeah.
Now, when we got there, you changed your tactics a little bit.
I did. Put on the old tried and tested Candy Fab.
Okay.
Again, washing line with some shrimps. I kept the shrimps on and fished tight into the margins. You've got a lot of shallow water for a long way out, just for the willows near Marlow Stones. Little rocks about, so I knew there's going to be shrimp. And it's very shallow for a long way, so I wanted to hold the shrimps out there a little bit longer, put the old candy on the point. And again, just a bit of figure of 8. The Candy Fab creates a bit of disturbance, and the fish look up and they slam the shrimp. And the takes on the candy was very, very gentle. Yet you knew they were on the shrimp because the arm went out the socket.
Sure.
There was a lot of fish there, but like everywhere else, it's just like a small water. If the fish stop coming, you've got to move.
Yeah, and we did.
We did it again.
We moved to a couple of points along the North Shore. 2 of them were quite quiet. But then when we got to Pylon, we found quite a good head of fish there, but they weren't feeding on shrimp.
No, and that was quite important. So the rise form is different. You'll see them on the shrimp. They're often surging. You'll see like a movement after the shrimp. You see them, as with the phrase, using pushing water.
Yeah.
And this wasn't happening. You can see these little swells, such beautiful, delicate head and tails, great big tails coming out. Instantly thought snails. And then you look down in the water and there they were, just drifting past. But what was interesting, the angle of the wind was completely different. Whereas on the dam, the wind was coming across and coming in, bringing the food to us, bringing the fish to us, made it very easy for us. On this particular shore, on the Pylon Point, the wind was coming across and you could see the fish starting tighter in the corner. But as the snail drifted, the fish went with it. So we started off with a bit of a frenzy and the food got further and further out. So we waded a bit further to keep the food, keep in the zone of the food.
Sure. Well, I found by accident that I'd tied a little olive shrimp on a size 14, and it just happened to be the perfect snail imitation.
Sure. Yeah.
The other thing as well I found was quite effective was that because we were casting across the wind that day, when you were casting across the wind on a tight line, it was just coming round too fast.
Yep.
And it was really important to put good mend in and just to create as much slack as possible. And once I was doing that, I was getting a lot of takes.
Yep.
But without that little bit of slack into the system to slow the speed down, which the drifting snail would have been going at snail's pace, of course, it wouldn't happen. But when I did, boom, straight into fish.
That's just, again, thinking about your retrieve, thinking about what you're doing. That simple mend slows it all down. You've got a different depth as well. You're not been whisked around 2 or 3 inches down. You've put the mend in, it's all slowed down and it's allowing it to drop. You might be cut a foot down.
Well, it was almost like bone fishing, to be honest, because we had a lovely clear water that day. We could see fish flashing at the flies at distance, and it was a real pleasure to be out on the bank there.
Yeah. I think we got it right that day.
Yeah, we lucked out again.
The perfect day.
Well, Iain, it's been an absolute pleasure making the film again with you this year. I look forward to doing the same next year.
Can't wait. What are we on next year, Gareth?
I think we'll do a little bit of dry fly.
Oh.
I think you'll have to do a bit of top of the water fishing where I might stand a chance.
You might get closer.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody's enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed making it, and we'll see you next time.
See you again.